All right, so the world is basically holding its breath right now. The huge, high-stakes summit between US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping is happening tomorrow. And believe me, the agenda is just packed with tension. Let's dive in and break down what's really at stake.
And you've got to understand, this is so much more than just a photo op or some diplomatic handshake. This summit has immense global significance. We're talking about everything from the flow of global trade to some really serious geopolitical flashpoints. The entire world is going to be watching every single move.
Okay, so the whole conversation is really going to boil down to three critical areas, three huge battlegrounds, if you will. The trade war that's been going on forever, the incredibly sensitive issue of Taiwan's status, and of course, the escalating battle for technological dominance.
So first up, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the trade war. This is, without a doubt, the most immediate and, frankly, the most pressing issue on the table. A lot of people are hoping for some kind of breakthrough, or at the very least, maybe a temporary truce.
Now, the good news is, they're not exactly starting from square one. There's a basic framework for a deal already in place. But you know how it is. The devil is always in the details, and that fine print is where things are getting really intense and being fiercely negotiated.
And despite all those hurdles, President Trump is coming out really strong, projecting a ton of confidence. He's on the record saying he's very optimistic about the outcome. But, of course, the big question is, will that optimism actually turn into a solid, lasting deal? We're going to have to wait and see.
Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from the economic battlefield to something way more volatile, the whole issue around Taiwan's status. This is a serious flashpoint. And interestingly, Beijing seems to be cranking up the pressure right before this meeting.
So how are they doing that? Well, China has just unleashed what a lot of experts are calling a media blitz. And what is that? Think of it like a full-on propaganda offensive. It's a super coordinated campaign using all their state-run media to just hammer home one very specific, very powerful message.
And their message is crystal clear. You've got China's government news agency, Xinhua, just blasting this out everywhere. Taiwan belongs to China, full stop. And its reunification, they're saying it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
And look, you have to be clear about this. This is not just empty talk. This isn't just rhetoric. Analysts are looking at this media blitz and seeing it for what it is, a direct warning shot to both Washington and Taipei. The message is pretty blunt. Don't even think about making any moves towards Taiwanese independence.
So what does this all mean for the summit? Well, the expectation is that President Xi is going to draw a very hard line in the sand. He's expected to tell President Trump in no uncertain terms that for Beijing, the Taiwan issue is completely non-negotiable.
All right, so beyond all of that geopolitical chess, there's a third massive battleground we need to talk about, the tech war. And this isn't just about who has the coolest new smartphone. No, this is a fundamental fight for control over the technologies that are literally going to shape our future.
And in this fight, China has a huge bargaining chip. You might even call it a trump card, rare earth minerals. So what are these? They're basically the secret sauce in everything. I mean, everything from your phone to sophisticated military gear. And here's the kicker, China controls most of the world's supply.
And what happens when one side has that kind of leverage? Well, you get this really dangerous tit-for-tat situation. It's become this escalating spiral of retaliation, right? One side makes a move, the other hits back even harder.
And you can really see the back and forth here. The US comes in and bans key chip supplies to China. So what does China do? They retaliate by curbing their exports of those rare earths we just talked about. That's a move that hits critical American industries right where it hurts.
But there might be a glimmer of hope here, a potential off-ramp from this whole mess. Recent talks have hinted at a possible compromise. The idea is maybe China delays its supply restrictions for a year, and in exchange, the US could ease up on its chip ban. And President Trump himself has even kind of hinted at what he might put on the table. He specifically mentioned potential access to NVIDIA's most advanced AI chip, which he, famously called the super-duper chip. When you hear language that specific, it tells you there's a real willingness to make a deal.
Okay, so trade, Taiwan, tech. Those are the big three for sure. But there are a couple of other things buzzing in the background that are almost guaranteed to pop up in conversation.
So you should also expect them to talk about China's role in the fentanyl crisis. That's a huge one. And also finally hammering out the details of that TikTok deal. Now, these might not get the same headline coverage, but for the Trump administration, these are really important domestic issues. So when you take a step back and look at the big picture, you realize this summit is about so much more than just tariffs or a single deal. This is really a defining moment for the entire US-China relationship. It touches everything from economic competition to national security. I mean, we're talking about the future of global power here.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, right? Where do we go from here? Will these two global giants figure out a way to compete without descending into outright conflict? Or are we standing on the edge of a new kind of Cold War? The answer to that question, well, that could shape our world for decades to come.